I think I'm recording now. I hope you see the whiteboard, guys. So yeah, the plan today. So first I'm gonna go over the exercise we had yesterday, and then we're gonna talk about how to represent the data, right? Like, in real life, when you have a job, you have like meetings all the day, and in the meetings you're gonna represent sometimes, make like presentations, right? And in the presentation, you're gonna have like graphs, right? Different kind of graphs, like you know, like histograms or etc. So what I'm going to show you today, guys, is how to make like some relevant graphs. Yeah, as I said, this is what we do, like in real life. Like, my wife, she has this job and she has meetings all the day, and she making presentations, and she has like graphs all the time, in her presentation. So I'm going to show you how to make presentations, graphs today, using the frequency table. But first, I'm gonna go over the exercise. So we are still in the section 2.1. So we have like frequency. So this is frequency tables and histograms. And then there's one more thing, guys, right? We know now how to make frequency tables, right? So the next thing is what kind of informations we can get from frequency tables, right? It's good to know how to make frequency tables, but of course the idea is how to use it, right? So I'm gonna discuss that later, okay? So I'm gonna go over the exercise we had yesterday. So we have this data, which represents actually the goals. So the following data, I'm going to write down the numbers. The data represents the goals scored last season, right, by the MLS by teams and the MLS Eastern Conference, right? Eastern Conference, and so we said in the MLS Eastern Conference there are like 14 teams, I think, and so we had the following numbers. We had 6, 12. The third team scored I think 16. Then we had 17, 20, 21, 22, then 24, then 27, 30, 31, 31, 34, and then 36. Right. So first we said, so as a first step, we want four classes, right? So we said it's the first step. So we said we want 4 classes. Step number 2. So we computed the width yesterday, right? I mean, let me know, guys, if you don't know how to compute the width. Just let me know. Okay, so this was done yesterday in the last 10 minutes. So we computed the width. We take the difference between the largest and the smallest data values, and you divide by the number of classes, right? And then you need to take the next higher whole number, right? So this was done yesterday, and so we computed the width, and we said the width would be 8. Right. So please let me know, guys, if you don't know how to compute the width. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay. Anyway, so next, so we need to find. So step 3. So we need to find the classes limits. Classes limits. Okay, so I'm gonna go like in details how to find the classes limits, because I know sometimes this is confusing. But the idea is So we have 4 classes. You have like first class, second class, third class, and then fourth class. So for each class, you need to find like the lower limit. That will be the smallest number in the class. So the lower limit, and then you need to find the upper limit. That will be like the largest number in the class. All right, so we start with the lower limit. And then once you're done with the lower limit, we can move to the upper limit. So now for the lower limit, for the first class, the lower limit of the first class is always the smallest number, right? So like here in our example, the smallest number is 6. So the lower limit of the first class is going to be 6, okay? And then we're going to add 8, right? We're going to add, I'm recording, right? Yes, I'm recording. We're going to add 8, which is the width, right? We're going to add 8 each time, right? So this is like 6 plus 8, that'll be 14, and then 14 plus 8, that'll be 22, 22 plus 8, that'll be 30. Okay, so this is plus 8, plus 8, and then plus 8. All right, now for the upper limit, just be careful here with the upper limit. So for the upper limit of the first class, what we do is you take the lower limit of the second class, which is 14, okay, of the second class, and then you subtract.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
All right, so the first class is 6, but the second one, why is it 14? I thought it'd be 12.
It's
12 is second lowest.
No, 6 plus 8. The width is 8.
Oh,
Why it's 14.
okay. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, now for the upper limit of the first class, we take the lower limit of the second class. Okay, this is important, of the second class, and then you need to subtract 1. You will always subtract 1. It doesn't matter what's the problem, you always subtract 1. Okay, so 14 minus 1, that will be 13. So then the upper limit of the first class would be 13. So this is here, that will be 13. Okay. Now, for the upper limit of the next class, all you have to do is just to add the 8. So here's my plus 8, my plus 8, and then my plus 8. So 13 plus 8, that will be the 21. 21 plus 8, that'll be 29. And then 29 plus 8, that'll be 37.
Okay, excuse me, Professor.
Yes, please.
Question. So always for the upper limit to get the first answer, you always got to subtract the second class.
The lower limit, lower limit.
That's what I'm saying. Like you subtract the lower limit from the second class by 1, and that's how you get your answer.
Yes, that's always the case. It doesn't matter your numbers. It doesn't matter how many classes we have. It doesn't matter your width. It's always minus 1. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And where did 21 come from?
21. Yeah, that's because for the upper limit of the next classes, you're gonna add 8 each time, right? So that's like 13 plus 8. The 13 plus 8. So that's how I got the 21.
Oh, so that's how you do it. You do the lower limit, and then that's a lot of stuff. That's confusing.
Well, with the practice,
That's confusing.
Yeah, I know it's confusing the first time, of course. I mean, if you do anything like the first time, it's always confusing, right? But if you practice a little bit, like if you do, like I'm gonna post the homework and I'm gonna have like similar problem. But if you practice like in the homework, I mean, hopefully it won't be confusing.
Yeah, this is the stuff that I missed yesterday.
Yeah, but as I said, it's always about practice. Yes.
Yeah, I saw it last night on YouTube, which was very helpful, very helpful. But my question is, the negative 1 that you're gonna, when you not negative, when you take away the 1, is it just for the first one, or is it as you continue?
No,
when you
it's
go
just for the first. It's just for the first upper limit.
The first.
Yeah, but actually you can do it like for the next, like you see here 20, like
No,
you see this
don't do
22
that.
here, and
Yeah.
actually if you subtract 1 from 22, you get 21.
Right.
That's
Right.
another way to do it, but I mean, but I don't know. That would be probably kind of
Too
confusing.
much.
That's
So
confusing.
I prefer to add like the with, you know,
Mhm.
to
The
add
first one.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Any other question, guys? All right, so that's from the classes limits, and then in the next steps, of course, we need to compute. I mean, steps 4, you know, 5, 6, 7. So you know, we need to compute the. So we have the classes boundaries. You need to find the midpoints. You need to find the frequency, and then the relative frequency. And then cumulative frequency.
Can I ask one more question? So
Yes, please.
is that always for the second class and the third class, you're always subtracting 1 from what you got?
You can do that, yes. You can do that, yes. Like here, like you see this 30 here. If
Mhm.
you subtract 1, then you're gonna get the upper limit of the previous class. But I mean, personally, I prefer to add like 8 each time, right? Because you know, it's kind of confusing, this -1, right? So I prefer to add like 8 each time. But for the first, of course, but for the first upper limit, you see the 13, how I got the 13? You know, I had to subtract 1 from 14. That's the way to do it. You need to subtract 1 at least the first time, right? But then you can just add 8 each time.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna write that down.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna make my frequency table. I'm gonna try to explain the formulas very quickly. Okay, so here's my classes limits. Oops, I need more space, so I'm gonna just write it down here. So classes limits, then we have the classes boundaries. And then we have the midpoints. Then we have the frequency, okay? And then we have relative frequency. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have enough space, but anyway, I'm gonna try. And then you have the cumulative frequency. Okay. All right, so for the classes limits, so we said we have by classes limits. So we have first class, and the interval, it's from 6 to 13. And then we have from 14 to 21, from 22 to 29, and then from 30 to 37. All right, now for classes boundaries, so what we said yesterday is, I mean, to find the classes boundaries. So for the lower boundary, we need to subtract 0.5 from the lower limit. And for the upper boundary, we need to add 0.5 to the upper limit. So for the first class, the lower limit is 6, right? So we need to subtract 0.5. So it's 6 minus 0.5. So that will be 5.5, right? You subtract 0.5. Now for the upper boundary, you need to add 0.5 to the upper limit, right? The upper limit is it's 13. So that's 13 plus 0.5. So that's 13.5. Okay, so you always subtract 0.5 from the lower limit and you add 0.5 to the upper limit. So next, that's 14. 14, that's the lower limit. So that's 14 minus 0.5. So that's 13.5. And then for the upper boundary, that's 21 plus 0.5. So that's 21.5. all right, etc. Please let me know if you have a question. Yes.
I understand everything so far, but what I was having a problem with, right?
Mhm.
You see like how you have 6, 13.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. When everything is lined up in the graph, the numbers, how do I know how much to pick? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. How do I know like the number for the class limit? Like how will I know it's 6, 13? Oh,
So you don't know how I
you
got
take
the
it from-
6? 6 is that's the like the lowest number in the
no,
date.
no. I know all of that.
Okay.
I know the lowest number. I know the
Okay.
highest number. I know all of that. What
Okay.
I do, I'm trying to figure out like how you do 6 minus 13. Like how you.
Oh, okay. This is not like it's not subtraction here. When I write, I'm sorry, that's actually that's a good point. So when I write 6 here minus 13, this is not like a subtraction. This is just saying we have
The
like
class limit.
yes, we have like an
6
interval.
to 13.
6, yeah, it's like from 6 to
Yeah, no.
13.
I don't want you to get me. I understand all of it. Maybe
Okay.
I said it wrong by saying minus.
Yeah.
Okay, how you know it's 6 to 13? Like how do I know? How do I? Because I did everything, but I don't know how I get to
The
like.
13? So you
Yeah,
know how you know how
I
to
know
get the
how
6. You know how
I
to
know
get
how
the
to do
6.
the class boundaries. I know all of that, but I don't know how I pick out the numbers out of the box so that I could line it up to make it 6 to 13, 14 to 21. Like,
Okay. So yeah, okay. So you see in the step in this, I think there's a question in the chat. You see in this step 3, you see this step 3, right? The way I
yeah,
computed the lower limits
yeah,
first, and then we said then we can compute our upper limits, right?
yeah.
So then my first class or my first interval would be like from this 6 to this 13. You know, this is like
Oh,
my first, that's like my
oh,
first class.
I got it now.
Okay.
It was, it was right there. Okay, it's the answers that you get
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you
the answers. Yeah.
line up. Okay,
Yep.
got it. You got
Okay.
it. Okay,
I see there are some questions in the chat. Samantha, okay, thank you, Samantha, for letting me know. Nival. Yes, that's from the step 3, Nival. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Mhm.
I have a question, Professor.
Yeah, Edward. Yeah.
For the I'm kind of confused on getting the answer to classes boundaries. Like, can you just break down the first one, the 6 to
How I
13,
got
then the how did you get the answer 5.5 minus 13.5
okay, that's a good point. So the
or 2
for
or
the for the
13.5,
yeah,
whatever.
okay. So for the lower boundary, like this 5.5. So how I got this 5.5. So what we do is we subtract, so the lower, let me write down here the formula. So the lower boundary, that will be the lower limit, okay, minus 0.5. So for example, the way I got the 5.5 was like, you know, I take the 6 here, that's my lower limit, right? This is 6. Like first class, lower limit is 6. Okay. And then I subtracted 0.5. Okay, so then the answer, if you do 6 minus 0.5, that will be 5.5. And that's how I got the 5.5.
Okay, so the lower limit is always 0.5.
Minus, you subtract 0.5, yes.
Minus 0.5 for
Yes.
every number. Like, let's say for the next step, 14 to 21. So you subtract 0.5
From 14.
From 14, I mean.
Yes, from the lower limits. Now, for the upper boundary, you need to add 0.5. So for the upper boundary, that will be upper limit plus 0.5. So like the way I got the 13 you know, this 13.5, that's because that's 13 plus the 0.5. And so that's like 13 plus 0.5. That's how I got the
Okay.
13.5. Okay.
All right, thank you.
I see there's a question in the chat. Carlene, you're saying you're still confused with the classes boundaries.
No, it's
Now
okay.
does it make more sense now?
Yeah.
I mean, don't be shy. I mean, if it doesn't still, it's still confusing, just let me know. I mean, I can repeat the explanation. I mean, I don't really mind. Okay. Now, like, okay, like for the third, you know, like for this third class, right? We have, it's from 22 to 29. So then for the lower boundary, you subtract 0.5. So that's 22 minus 0.5. So that's 21.5. And then for the upper boundary, you're going to add 0.5 to the 29. Right? So 29 plus 0.5, that will be 29.5. For the fourth class, there's something in the chat. Let me see. Lower limit subtract 0.5. Upper, you're gonna, yes, Janine, yes. So here, like 13, you subtract, 30, you subtract 0.5, so that will be 29.5. And here it's 37, that's the upper limit, so you're gonna add 0.5, so that's 37.5. Okay. Now, for the midpoints, so we said for the midpoints, that will be the average of your upper and lower limit. So what we do is we take, you know, the lower limit, like the first class, the lower limit is 6 plus the upper limit, which is 13, and we divide by 2. We always divide by 2 because that's like the average. That'll be like the middle point of the interval. Okay, so that's like the point in the middle of your interval. So that's 16. 6 plus 13. That's 19. 19 over 2. That will be 9.5. Okay. For the second class, I mean, we can do the same. It's 14 plus 21 over 2, or you can just add. Another way to do it is you can just add plus 8 to the 9.5. So that's 17.5. So the midpoint of the next class would be 17.5. Right? It's 9.5 plus the width. That's 17.5. You can add the width again, plus another 8, right? So that's 17.5 plus 8. So the midpoint of the third class, that'll be 25.5. And then last class, so we're gonna add 8. So the midpoint of the last class would be 25.5 plus 8. So that will be 33.5. All right. Then for the frequency, so you need to
I
count.
have a question.
Yes, please.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the midpoints, you're just going off of the one before. You just keep adding those. You're not going over to the class boundaries and like 29.5 and adding the 37.5, and then whatever whatever your total is, then you divide it, and then with that answer, then you add 8.
Yes. No, you don't really come back to your here. I don't really come back to my class class limits. I just add 8 to the previous answer. Like I had 9.5 as the first answer, so I just added 8. Okay, or
I have a question.
just one second. Sorry, or you know, the way I got the 17.5. As I said, I added 8 to the 9.5, right? Or you can come back to your classes limits if you want. So for example, here I have 14 and 21. So I can take like 14 plus 21 and then divide by 2. That will be 35/2, and you're gonna get the same answer, which is 17.5.
Because what I would have done was 16 plus 13, right? Which is 19. So where do you get the 9 from?
Oh yeah, you mean
I'm missing
you're,
something.
you're talking
So
about
you
the first
divide.
class? You're talking about the first
No.
class?
I'm saying like when I'm looking at the midpoints, the first one, and it says 6 plus 13, right?
Oh.
That's, and then you have the division line with the 2 under it, and you have 9.5. But I would have
No,
thought that you do 6 plus 13, which is 19.
Yes, that's what I did actually. I mean, I jumped like one step, and so it's 19/2, right?
Why is the 2 under there?
That's because you want to that's the way we compute the midpoint. So the midpoint is supposed to be like the average or the middle, the point in the middle of your class So it's like the average of your lower limit and the upper limit. So that's why we divide by 2. That's why we have to divide by 2 to compute the midpoint.
Okay, so in the midpoint, you always divide by 2.
Because that's like the average, it's like the point in the middle of your interval. So it's like taking the average.
Is all of that stuff in the, you said in the thing that has all the information about the steps? What were we calling it again? The graph or something like that?
Oh yeah, the histograms. Yeah, I'm gonna use all these informations actually to graph.
And it'll tell us step by step how to do it?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna, of course. I'm gonna, I'm gonna show you step by steps how to graph your histogram or where.
I'm talking about with the vocabulary for like class boundaries to know how to do the class boundaries.
Yeah, we're gonna use the same vocabulary. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
So when I look at it, I'm gonna know how to solve the problem.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. I think someone else had the question, right? Please.
Yes, please.
Yes, super.
I just want to ask you, like, so we're gonna do just one division with the first one, and then we're gonna add the plus 8, and that's it.
Yes. So we divide the 19 by 2. So, so this 19 by 2, this is supposed to be 9.5. So I don't, all right, so 19 by 2, it's 9.5. I'm gonna just erase the fraction because I don't have enough space. So 19 by 2, that's 9.5. And then you can just add 8, right? And this is a plus 8. And when you add plus 8, you get the midpoint of the next class. So 9.5 plus 8, that's 17.5. And that's the midpoint of the second class. Okay, so we can just keep, you can keep adding 8, to get the midpoint. Okay. Any other question, guys? All right. So I said I'm gonna go quickly over this exercise, but it's like now it's like it's 40 minutes. But anyway, it's a good thing to go over this again, because we're gonna use this stuff later for this next section, and it's anyway, it's gonna be useful. Now for the frequency, so we said for the frequency we count how many values are in each class, right? So for the first class, it's like from 6 to 13, right? So you count how many values are from 6 to 13. You include the 6 and you include the 13, right? So for example, here, so for the first class, we have 6, we have 12, right? 12 is it's between 6 and 13. And then next number, it's 16, which is of course larger than 13. So we have only 2 values between 6 and 13. So frequency of the first class is actually 2. Okay, we have only 2 values between 6 and 13. Now for between 4 and 21, I think we have like 4, right? We have 4. And then the third class, I think we have like 3 values, if I'm not mistaken. And then last class, we have like 5, right? 5 values between 30 and 37. And as I said yesterday, you can always check your answer. Yes? Any question for me? Okay, so you can always check your answer, guys.
Can you repeat again this part?
How I got the 2435?
Yeah.
So yeah, so do you understand how I got the two, the for the first class? So the first class is, the first class, the interval is from 6 to 13. You see this 6 to 13 here, right here. So you need to count how many numbers are from 6 to 13, right? So you go back to your data values, and you need to count how many numbers are from 6 to 13. So as you can see here, there's 6, it's between 6 and 13. 12, it's between 6 and 13, right? So we have two numbers, only two numbers between 6 and 13. Does this make sense to you, Carlene?
Yeah.
You said yes or no? I'm sorry, I didn't
Yes.
hear. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Then you do the same thing for the next class, right? Next class is like, so next class is like from 14 to 21, right? It's from 14 to 21. So you count like 14 to 21. So we have like 16. 16, it's from, it's between 14 and 21. 17, it's from, it's between 14 and 21. 20,
So that's 4.
it's, yes, between 14 and 21, and then 21, it's included. It's between 14 and 21. So that's why we have the frequency is 4 for the second class. Of course, as you can see, I mean, the next number is 22, but 22, it's not between 14 and 21. 22, it's larger than 21, okay? So that's why we have frequency of the second class is 4, and etc. Okay? Any other question, guys? Please, I mean, don't be shy. I mean, I'm here to answer your questions anyway. That's like my job, all right, so now for relative frequency, so what we do, so what I said yesterday is for relative frequency, we need to divide your frequency by the size of the sample. Okay, so just remind you here, relative frequency. So that's frequency over the size of the sample. So what do I mean by the size of the sample? Size of the sample, that's the number of data values we have. Okay, size of the sample, that's the number of data values. How many numbers we have, right? Well, in this example, we have 14 numbers, right? We have 14 teams in this M&S system conference, right? So we have 14 numbers, so we need to divide by 14. So for the relative frequency of the first class, there'll be frequency over 14. So that's like 2 over 14, right? For the next class, the frequency is 4, so we need to divide 4 by 14. Then we have 3 over 14, and then we have 5 over 14. All right, and then of course I don't have enough space here, but you need to divide the 2 by 14. Okay, so you can use your calculator and compute 2 divided by 14. Now for the cumulative frequency. So for the first class, cumulative frequency is just the same as the frequency. I mean, the frequency here is for the first class is 2. So cumulative frequency of the first class is also 2. Okay. Now, for the second class, the cumulative frequency is actually equal to the frequency of the class plus the frequencies of the previous classes. Okay. So the frequency of the second class is 4. So that's 4 plus, and then you need to add the frequencies of the previous classes, right? We have 1. I mean, the previous class is the first class, and its frequency is 2, right? So we're gonna add 4 plus 2, so cumulative frequency cumulative frequency of the second class is 6, right? That's a frequency of the second class plus the frequency of the first class. Now, cumulative frequency of the third class, right? So frequency of the third class is 3 plus, so the previous classes, we have the second class, right, which is 4, and the first class, right? So that's 4 plus 2, right? So this is like 3 plus 4 plus 2. So that would be equal to, 7 plus 2, that would be 9. So cumulative frequency of the third class is 9. And now for the last class, we take the frequency of the last class, which is 5, right? So that's like 5 plus, and then we're gonna add the frequencies of the previous classes, okay? All the previous classes. So we have the third class, so that's 3. We have the second class, which is 4, and we have the first class, which is 2. So the total here would be actually 14. 5 plus 3, that's 8 plus 4, 12 plus 2, that's 14. So the answer is 14. Okay. So that's how you get your cumulative frequency. Any question, guys? All right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I know it's a lot.
Can you redo it one more time?
I have a question regarding the,
yes,
what is that, relative frequency?
Yes.
How do you know you have to divide by 14, like 2 divided by 14, 4 divided by 14?
The
Why
14
I mean,
is the number on the
I
top.
understand the frequency is, like the top numbers, but how do you know the bottom number is 14, 14, 14, 14?
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
14, that's so 14, that's the size of the sample. And so what do I mean by the size of the sample? I mean how many data values we have, how many numbers we have. Like here, if you count how many numbers we have in total, like
14.
14.
Oh, okay,
One,
okay,
two,
okay, I
three,
get it.
we have 14 numbers here. We have 14 teams in
Right.
the SMS Eastern Conference. So that's why I divide by 14.
Got it. Thank you.
Someone else, I think, had the question. Sorry about that. Yeah, please go ahead. Someone else, I think.
I was thinking that is because you add up the 2, the 4, the 3, and the 5 on the upper side. That made it 14 is why you was doing the 2 over 14. But now I understand you're saying it's what's inside of the box.
So that's yeah. So that's like the number of data values, how many numbers you have in total.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Now, for
So
sure.
hold on, you're getting the cumulative frequency from the relative frequency, and you're just taking that and putting that in the box, the top number, and that's what you keep adding. That's why you added 2. That's why you added 4. That's why you added 3. That's why you added 5.
Yes, but it's not from the relative frequency. It's actually from the frequency, right?
Okay.
I mean, from the frequency here, right? So yes. Anyway, so you're gonna have a similar problem for sure in the homework, guys. You'll have time to practice, and of course, if you have more questions, just email me. All right. So yeah, we need to move
I have
to
a question, Professor.
yeah.
I
Please.
saw like you post a video about you and YouTube, so all the class will be in YouTube too. In case we don't understand nothing, we can see again.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you need help, yeah, sure, you can email me. I mean, you can take up an appointment. I mean, you can come to my office hours, or we can. I mean, if you cannot make it to my office hours, you can meet at different time. Just email me, take an appointment, or there is of course the online tutoring. And if you don't know what's the link, the link to the online tutoring, I can email it to you.
Okay, but all class will be in post on YouTube too.
Excuse me, say it again. I'm sorry.
Yes, I saw you post two video about the class with asking if all the video will be in YouTube.
Oh yeah. The yeah. all the recordings are on YouTube. Yeah. Did you get the? I mean, I think I posted the links on the community Blackboard. Did you get the links?
Yeah, that's what I asked them.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, I upload the videos on YouTube. Yeah. And yeah, you can review the. I mean, you can check the videos. I mean, if you're still confused, I mean, you can watch again the you know the session and hopefully it's gonna be helpful. All right, guys. So we need to. Sorry, but we need to move to the next next thing, which is the histograms, right? I said the goal. I mean, today the goal is supposed to be like how to represent all this data. So what we're gonna do with this frequency table, right? So the goal now is how do we represent the data using this frequency tables. Okay, so yeah, actually there are different ways to represent the data. So we're gonna start with the histograms. So this is a graphical display. Okay, so we're gonna discuss first the histograms. Okay, and as I said, this is very useful, can be very useful in real life, right? You know, you have meetings and you have to make like a presentation. You need to make like a presentation, right? And the presentations are all about graphs, right? So in some sense, you need to make like the numbers to talk, right? But anyway, so the most common graph we can use here is this histogram. So there are two steps. So how do we? So question here. Okay, so how do we graph a histogram? Okay. So if you want to display the frequency or relative frequency, so usually what we can do is we can use the histogram. Okay, so that's why this histogram is useful. So histograms, they can be used to display like frequency or relative frequency. So it depends on what you want, right? So I don't know, if you have a meeting and you want to display frequency, then you can use of course a histogram, or want to display relative frequency, you can also use this histogram, right? Relative frequency. All right, so now the steps. How do we make this histogram, or how do you graph a histogram? So first, step one. So we have some data values, right? We have some data. So we have so we have the data. We have some data. So first, you need to make your frequency table, okay? So that's like the first step. You wanna graph your histogram. So as a first step, you need to make your frequency table. Make frequency table. Okay, because we're gonna use it anyway. So we're gonna use the frequency table, you know, to graph your histogram. Now, in the histogram, we're gonna have like two axes. So step two. So in the histogram, so we're gonna have we have like two axes. So we're gonna have like a horizontal axis and like a vertical axis, right? So we have like two axes. So in the horizontal axis, So first, so we have a horizontal axis. And so in the horizontal axis, so what we use is the classes boundaries. So here we put the classes boundaries. Okay, so it's a classes boundaries. So for the horizontal axis, that's what we use, the classes boundaries. Okay. Now we're gonna have like a vertical axis. And in the vertical axis, you're gonna put either the frequency or relative frequency. Okay, it depends on what you want. Okay, so let's say you want to display a frequency, then you're gonna put the frequency on your vertical axis. Okay, so here we're gonna put the frequency or relative frequency. And again, this depends on what we want. So depending on what we want. So like in the homework or in the test or like in the exam, so if you have like a question where you have to graph this histogram, so it's going to tell you, well, use the histogram to display like a frequency, okay? Or it's going to tell you, well, use the histogram to display like the relative frequency, okay? So, all right, now let's do an example. Okay, so I'm gonna just use the example we had here with the with the 4 classes, etc. So I'm gonna just so as example, I'm gonna use just the previous. I'm gonna use the previous example. So let's use the previous example. Okay, I won't previous example. So I won't repeat the whole frequency table. I'm gonna just take what I need here. So obviously we need the classes boundaries, right? First, so that's what we're gonna put in on the horizontal axis, right? So I'm gonna need the classes boundaries. So I'm gonna use the previous example, let's say, to display let's say frequency. Okay, here frequency. Okay. So what we need is we need the classes boundaries. So classes boundaries. Okay, and we need the frequency. So I'm gonna just write down the numbers we had in the previous example. So classes boundaries, oops. So classes boundaries, where's my class boundaries? So here's my classes boundaries, right? This is my classes boundaries of my previous example, right? So I'm gonna use these numbers here, the 5.5 to the 13.5, etc. Right? So we have in the previous example and the classes boundaries, we have 5.5 to 13.5. Second class, I think we have like 13.5 to 21.5. And then third class, we have like 21.5 to 29.5. And then fourth class, we have like from 29.5 to 37.5. Okay. So this is just from, I didn't do anything here, guys. I mean, this is just the numbers from the previous example, right? So that's my classes boundaries, and then the frequencies. So here is my frequencies, the 2, 4, 3, and 5, right? 2, 4, 3, and 5. So 2, first class is 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Sorry, it's 2, 4, 3, and 5. I think it's 2, 4. Sorry. Yes, it's 2, 4, and then 3, 5. So this is 2, 4, and then 3, 5. All right, so let's start with the horizontal axis, right? So the horizontal axis, when I say horizontal axis, I mean like a number line, right? So you have like, you have like a number line, and you have like an arrow at the end of your number line. And so on this horizontal axis, or on this number line, I'm gonna put my class's boundaries, right? So first class, for the first class, as you can see, the first class boundaries, so we have 5.5 to 13.5, right? So I'm gonna plot like here, like 5.5, okay, to, so from 5.5 to 13.5. That's my first class. Second class, it's from 13.5. I already have the 13.5, so you don't need to repeat the 13.5. And then to 21.5. So here's my 21.5. Right, and then we have 21.5 again. Okay, and then 29.5. So here's my 29.5. Okay, and then last upper boundary, it's actually 37.5. So here is my 37.5. Okay. So again, this axis, or this horizontal axis, represent the class's boundaries, right? So here I'm gonna just write down class's boundaries, right? Just so what it means here is the numbers I have on this number line, they represent the class's boundaries. Okay. All right. Now, so that's my horizontal axis. Now on the vertical axis, so I'm gonna have like a vertical line here. Okay. And this vertical line is supposed to represent the frequency. So I'm gonna put, so here, this vertical line is supposed to represent my frequency. Okay. So you see at this point, the intersection of the intersection of your horizontal and vertical axis. So this point is supposed to represent 0, right? This is like 0, okay? That would be like the intersection of your horizontal and the vertical lines, right? Now, so I'm gonna go up, and I'm gonna plot my frequencies. So the smallest frequency here is 2, right? So it's like you have like 0, this is just a number line, right? So we're gonna go up with positive numbers. So 0, 1, 2, and then you have 3, and then you have like 4, and then you have like 5. Okay. So again, I just plotted my my frequencies, guys, right, on this vertical axis. And of course, you need to start with like the smallest number, right? Like here we have like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right, etc. Right? So you always start like from 0, and then the numbers are increasing. Okay, the numbers increases, right? Now we're gonna take the first class. So the first class, we said this is my first class. So the frequency of the first class is 2. Okay, so my first class is from 5.5 to 13.5. So this is, you see this interval? This interval represents my first class. Okay, and now what I'm saying is the frequency of my first class is 2. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna draw like a rectangle with width equal to 2. So I'm gonna go like this, go up, right? This is like here, you see the 2 here? So I'm gonna go up here, and I'm gonna draw like a rectangle Okay. So you see the length here, this is like my first class, the first interval, and then the width is just the, your frequency. Okay, so this rectangle, you see this red rectangle that represents the frequency of the first class. Okay. As you can see, the height of the rectangle here, it's 2, right? That's because that's the frequency of the first class. Now, second class, I'm going to use a different color for the second class. Let's use, let's say, green. So second class, it's from 13.5 to 21.5. So this is my 13.5 to 21.5. So this is like, you see this green interval? That's like my second class, right? Now, what's the frequency of my second class? It's 4. Okay, so what I'm gonna go up by 4 units, right? So I'm gonna go up here by 4. You see this 4 here, 4 units, and I'm gonna draw like a rectangle with width equal to 4. Okay, so this rectangle will represent the frequency of my second class. Next, we have the third class. Let's use the blue for the third class. So third class, it's from 21.5 to 29.5. So you see here, this is my 21.5 to 29.5. So this interval represents my third class, right? Now, what's the frequency of my third class? It's 3. So we need to go up by 3 units, right? Here's my 3 units. You see this 3 units here? We're gonna go with like a horizontal line here, So we're gonna go up by 3 units right here. Same here at 29.5, and I'm gonna draw like my rectangle with width equal to 3 units. Okay. And then last class, the frequency of the last class is 5. So my fourth class or last class is from 29. From 29, here's 29.5 to 37.5. So this interval represents my fourth class. Okay. And then the frequency of this fourth class is 5. So we need to go up by 5 units. So I'm gonna go up here by 5 units, right? You see here, this is 5, the height is 5. So we're gonna go up by 5 units. The same for 37.5 here. So I'm gonna draw this rectangle, and that will be my frequency of my fourth class. Okay. So that will represent the frequency of the fourth class. So, each color here represent like a different class, right? So we have, this is like the first, this is like your first class. This is like your second class, right? This is like your third class, and this is like your fourth class. Okay. So the idea here, guys, is to visualize. You want to visualize like using like this histogram. You want to visualize the frequency of your classes. You want to compare. At some point, you want to compare the frequencies of your classes. So usually we use this histogram, right? Is there any question, guys? How I graph my histogram? I mean, probably we can.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
All right. For the bottom part where we put the class boundaries, I see that some of the numbers overlap. That's why we was able to only write it once, as in 21 was up there and 29.5. In an instance, if there's a different number, how do we write that? Do we write all the numbers that's going to be up on our class boundaries on the chart?
That's a very good question, because that's why actually we do this, compute this classes boundaries, because the number, they always overlap.
They always have a double.
Yes, they always
Okay.
have double. That's why we
Okay,
do
perfect.
classes boundaries, actually.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. So like, yeah. Yeah. So 13.5, 13.5, 2 times 21.5. So that's why we do the classes boundary. They always overlap. We're gonna have the same numbers. Yes.
Okay, so that's also something for us to look out for whenever we're doing the class boundaries, that there should be a duplicate when
Yes,
we're doing our
duplicate.
formula.
Yeah,
Okay, no problem.
absolutely. Yeah.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good point. All right. So let me just say, guys. So this is this is when if you wanna display your frequency, right? Now, of course, if like in the question, we want to display relative frequency. So instead of the frequency, we can, you know, in this vertical axis, we can put the relative frequency. Okay. So here, let me just make the following remark. So let me just erase this. It's not like so remark. So let's say we want to display relative frequency instead of frequency, right? So we want to, and again, this depends on the problem. And so we want, so it's gonna tell you, well, you wanna, you know, display the frequency or relative frequency, right? So we want to, let's say if we want to, so if we want to display relative frequency, then I mean the idea is the same. It's just you know, on the vertical axis, you're gonna put your relative frequency instead of the frequency, right? So we just we put the relative frequency on the vertical axis instead of the frequency. So for example, so I'm gonna just use the same example. Okay, so we want to display, let's say, relative frequency. Then it's just the same thing. You're gonna use again the classes boundaries. So you're gonna need the classes boundaries. Okay, and then you're gonna need your relative frequency.
And class boundaries will always be on the bottom.
Yes, classes, that's the thing. Classes boundaries are always in the bottom. Yes.
And then we'll start on the vertical. We'll start off from 0, and then it will be 0.14, 0.28, and so forth.
Yes, 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 absolutely. That's the idea. And yes. So yeah, I'm gonna just write down very quickly here the again the classes boundaries. Just, so if you don't see the classes boundaries, I'm gonna just write them again here. So here's again 21, 21.5 to the 29.5, 29.5 to the what was the, I think 37, right? 0.5. Now for relative frequency, where's my relative frequency? Yes, so it's supposed to be like 2 divided by 14, right? So it's, just write it down here. So 2 over 0.14, right?
Yes.
And then
0.28.
0.28, thank you.
0.21.
21, thank you.
And 0.35.
Thank you. So then your histogram would be like, this is your histogram. So again, same thing. It's again, classes boundaries on the horizontal axis. So this is 0.5.5, 13.5, 21.5, 29.5, and then 37. So this is actually why these classes boundaries are useful, because the upper limit and the lower limit of two consecutive classes, they will coincide. And so yeah, on this vertical axis, we're gonna put the relative frequency. This is your relative frequency. And then, as I said, this point of the intersection of the two lines, the horizontal and the vertical one, that's always like your zero. All right. And then, I mean, your histogram doesn't have to be perfect, right? The units here, I mean, it doesn't have like be like perfect. So you start with the lowest relative frequency, right? Like the lowest number here, that will be 0.14, right? That's like the lowest number. And then after that, we have the 0.21, and then 0.28, and then 0.35, right? So we're gonna start with the 0.14. So I'm gonna put my 0.14 somewhere. Say this is my 0.14. And then after that, we said we have 0.21. So you need your relative frequency. I think there's a question in the chat. Yes, numerical order, of course, Yanni, yes. So your relative frequency must be, ordered, yes. Yeah, 0.14, then 0.21, then 0.28, and then 0.35. So yeah, then the first class, the relative frequency is 0.14. Again, so this is my first class, and so here's my 0.14. So we're gonna go up to 0.14, and that will be my relative frequency of the first class. Next class, it's 0.28. So we need to go up to 0.28. This is my second class from 13.5 to 21.5. And we need to go up to 0.28. Third class, the relative frequency is 0.21. So here's my 0.21. This is my third class, and we need to go up to 0.21. And finally, last class is, the relative frequency is 0.35. So this is my fourth class, and we know we need to go up to, so this is 0.35. So this is the relative frequency of my fourth class. Okay. Any question, guys? Let me check the chat if there is anything. Okay, no questions. Okay, perfect then. All right. Now, next. So once you have your histogram, right? You need to take, you need to get some information from your histogram, right? So so what we can do next is, so we're gonna try to describe the histogram, right? The shape of the histogram, okay? And the shape of the histogram is gonna tell you probably some information about the data values, okay? So next, so now we're gonna describe the shape, of the histogram. Okay. Now I'm gonna give you like a different kind of possible shapes of the histogram. Okay, and then of course like in the examples of the exercises, the homework, etc. You know, you need to find what will be the you know, the shape which is really close to your histogram. So so we have different kind of shapes. So we have different kind of shapes. So first shape would be, so first we have the uniform, or what we call a regular histogram. So first we have uniform or regular histogram. So what do I mean by uniform or regular histogram? This is when all the classes have the same, like they have more or less the same frequency, or the same relative frequency. So uniform or regular histogram. So the classes have more or less the same frequency or relative frequency. So then the shape of the histogram is going to look like relative frequency. So then the shape of the histogram is going to be like the following. So you're going to have like something like okay, etc. So you see here, you know, your classes, they have more or less the same frequency, right? The same height, right? The frequency is given by the height of the class, right? Or the height of your rectangle. So like in this case, so this is what I call a uniform or a regular histogram. Okay. So again, this is just a terminology, right? I mean, so if you have like this shape where, you know, the classes, they have like the same height, more or less the same height, which is the same frequency, then such a histogram is called like uniform, right? Or regular. So this is just like, you know, a terminology. It's just a definition, right? So that's the first possible shape for your histogram, right? Next, we have what we call mount shaped symmetrical. So mount shaped symmetrical. Okay, and so in this case, your histogram is going to be like, symmetric about the center. It's going to be symmetric about the center. So your histogram is going to look like the following. So you're going to have like something like, so let's say like this is like the center of your histogram, and then the center would be like the mirror for your histogram, right? So it's going to be like something like this here. Let's say here, something like this. Okay. So as you can see, so this class would be like, you know, this is like the center. This is like the center of your histogram. Okay. And as you can see, guys, so the histogram is like symmetric about this center, right? So you have like here, you have like these two classes, these two blue classes, they have like the same height, right? And then these two green classes here, they're gonna have like the same height, right? Then these two here, yellow classes, right? They're gonna have the same height, etc. So it's like, you know, like the center would be like, you know, the mirror for your histogram, right? So that's what I call mount shape symmetrical. So it's symmetric about the center. Okay. So that's, so this is mount shaped symmetrical. Okay. What else? Yes, one more, at least one more. Okay, we have, time is over, but let me just finish with the skewed left or skewed right. So skewed left or skewed right, this is when the you know, the one end has like the you know, has a more or less, you know, the bigger or largest frequencies. So one end, so this is when one end has the classes with the largest frequencies. Okay, so let me just give you an idea about this, the shape of such a histogram. So like, you know, like, let's say here, etc. Okay, so as you can see on the right side here, on the right side, you have the classes with the highest, you know, these two classes, they have like the highest frequencies, right? These two blue classes, they have like the highest frequencies, right? So in this case, your histogram is called skewed right, because this right side here, in the right side, you have like the largest or the highest frequencies. Okay, so this, in this case, we have skewed right on the right side. Okay. All right, guys, you know what? I'm gonna stop here. There is like, I think there is one more or two more shapes. Okay. I guess I'm gonna continue with this next time, and we'll have probably some examples. All right. So I'm gonna stop here. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next Monday. Yes.
Quick question regarding the homework. The homework is going to consist of what you showed us previously, or this, what you're teaching us right in this thing?
No.
Skewed, right?
No. Because we didn't do really any example about this, like this shape of histograms, right? So it's gonna, yeah,
histograms. Yes.
Yeah. So it's no, it's gonna be about the frequency tables.
Okay.
Just the frequency tables, right?
And you're gonna send out the paper with all the steps on it?
Oh yeah, the formula sheet.
Mhm.
Yes.